that the Holy Spirit is not perturbed or upset or distraught or bothered by any hurt. Oh, good. I'm glad you. And neither is God. In good part because He knows that not only are we coming home, we're already home. That's a very important point. So it's really a matter of our just waking up again and realizing that we are already home, we are already there. The suffering is occurring within the context of a dream. Just like a nightmare. When you have a nightmare, it looks like a lot of suffering that's going on within the nightmare. But then the real nice point about that is that you wake up the next day and you say, whoa, that was nothing. It was just a silly dream. Okay, Lily Cuts.
I think it was in one of your books, or in one of your magazines, there was a story about somebody, I don't know if he went to a guru or somebody, and then the guru nearly drowned him, and he was trying to gasping for air.
Right.
And it was something about that when you want
realization, when you want the truth, or when you want enlightenment, as much as you wanted air, you can have it.
Right.
All right. So that's the problem, is that then we don't want it enough. We're addicted to. That's why we actually have to get to a point we said many times before, where you say enough of this insane world, and there must be another way, and then you look for the other way. But it's not fun to getting to that point. It'd really be a good idea to say, look, I really want to wake up and know what's really going on without all this dreaming that's going on. In terms of the Course, most of us, and this is not to belittle us, or not directly, but anyhow, we are sleeping. We're walking around in this fuzzy world. We're not really awake. And the proof of that fact is that we do give in very easily to things like addictions, and which we then think control us, and that we don't have any control over, which isn't true. We do have control over it, but we just don't get it. Another way to talk about it, and this is not new with A Course in Miracles. You read Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, for example, right? Talk about sleepwalkers. The vast majority of people are sleepwalking through life. And that's why the goal here again is awareness, really being awake and really seeing, and then that's the thing that gives you the freedom. And not just that, but let me add, in terms of the Course, and this is so really important, it's responsibility. By that I mean it's being responsible and not playing victim to the world. That's why I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience. I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that happens to me is my choice. That's where, if you can get to the point where realizing that everything that seems that somehow or another you ask for it, right? And then the Course is the last line on that section is, and I receive as I have asked. If I can really receive it as I have asked for it, I'm really moving into a very mature step.
And John, doesn't that start by saying, herein lies the power of salvation?
Herein happiness, actually.
I thought it was salvation.
It may say salvation too.
But how powerful that is, to be, I'm responsible.
Yeah, let me look at it real quick.
That's the power of salvation, knowing that we're responsible for everything that we're feeling, thinking, and everything that seems to be happening to us. That word seems is in there.
It is. I've read this here twice before. I'll read it for the third time, just for those who are new to it. This is the only thing you need to do for vision, happiness, release from pain, the complete escape from sin, all to be given you. Say only this. And then the kicker phrase is, but mean it. You have to mean it. That's the whole, with no reservation, nonetheless. You have to, right? For herein the power, then there's salvation lies. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience. I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything, everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for, and I receive as I have asked. And I know some of the times we've all probably had the experiences of saying to ourselves, no, I did not ask for this. I do not want this. This storm called Sandy was not my doing, or this cancer is not my doing, or whatever. And yet here it is, and so the only thing you can do is be responsible in relationship to it, and that's the healthiest way you can get out of it. There was another, Lena, and then, well, I don't care. It doesn't matter who goes first. Let's let Lena. I gave her. Oh, it's right there. Yep, she's got it.
I would like to ask a question.
Is that on?
No, I don't think so.
It is now.
Is it okay? Yes, perfect. I would like to ask a question in regards to our special relationship with the spiritual path. In this case, with the Course in Miracles, I definitely feel that I have a special relationship with the Course, and I recognize that is exactly what I need at this time for my spiritual path and my awakening. I do feel an ancient love for the Course to the point where I feel a sort of stewardship for its truth and what it can do. Not that I'm going to go out there and preach it, but I do feel a certain responsibility. So where is the line between feeling a connection and feeling guided according to the special function which you are called to fulfill in this form, in this world, and having a special relationship with the Course?
I think all you really need to do is change one word. You have a holy relationship with A Course in Miracles. A holy relationship is a totally different way of seeing things, right?
Right.
This is something that you know is going to help you to wake up and to stay awake.
So I felt guilt before over my special relationship with the Course. Like, I need to let go my specialness with the Course. I felt so much guilt.
Drop the word special.
Okay.
In this particular case, there are a lot. There should be things about which that are positive relationships that we have that are feeding us in a very wonderful way. I feel that way. Say with my relationship with my wife, that we have a really nice relationship. So I'm very happy that we have this relationship. Glad for this, thankful for this relationship, etc. It's wonderful that it's there. Period. So it's not special in that sense. I mean, it could be special, and if one was demanding or something, but on the whole, we've learned how to live without falling into specialness, or at least not staying there very long if we do.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back here to
Giovanni. So
Giovanni.
Jon, I wonder what you think about this. I feel that my special relationships with money, other people, my career, I started withdrawing the investment that I have in them as defining me or finding my value, my worth in them, in other people, in what I do, what size of a house I own, and stuff like that. But what I discover in the process is that my resistance to the course idea, the soul reversal, that so to speak, comes from fear. I'm really afraid of looking within. I'm afraid of what I see, and ultimately I'm afraid of God.
Yes, of course.
So I made everything here more important.
Right.
And I become unwilling to, not give it up in the sense of denying it, but again, my investment. So I'm like, I cannot live without this amount of money on the bank because I'm not going to be safe. Of course, in the world, yes, we need security, but my investment was at an emotional and a spiritual level. So, but I think for me, it comes from fear.
Of course.
Things I don't know God, and I think the guilt that when the separation happened, the guilt that I felt, or we all did, by coming here.
Right.
So I'm afraid of God. So embracing that concept is very difficult. So I become more attached to this, to everything that's tangible, as that's my new God.
Right.
So to speak. Do you know?
Well, what the main event, but you see that, Giovanni. You see that. So as long as you see it and it's not buried in your unconscious, now you can do something with it. You can deal with it. That's very helpful. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah. I actually feel much better. I started
Of course.
slowly withdrawing the investment, the emotional investment,
Right.
and just seeing it more as this is part of my bodily life here, my experience.
Right.
My home is someplace else.
That's
then
right.
I became a little more comfortable with welcoming
Sure.
God and the Holy Spirit's guidance into my life.
Right.
But again, fear has to start slowly leaving me
Right.
to make room for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, you're doing it the right way.
Thank you.
Just keep moving in that direction. Actually, what you're just saying relates to what I was going to look at next here on the top of 7. This is from the Course where it says, you cannot be faithful to 2 masters who ask conflicting things of you. That's exactly what you're talking about, right? This is an often repeated theme in both the Course and in the Bible. In the Bible, we say, no man can serve 2 masters, for he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And then also from the book of James, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. By the way, the word mammon here is sometimes translated in some Bibles as money, and that's one word that could be used, but actually it originally just means wealth or materiality or riches, the world itself. And when Jesus says, for example, it's harder for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, what he really means in that is it's harder for somebody who thinks that his own worth and his own ego is so big and that he's so powerful that in the end we have to, as what you're talking about, in the end we have to let it all go. I mean, God does win, And what the Course in Miracles has said, the sooner you can let God win, the happier you're going to be. But none of this resistance stuff going on. Your way is never going to work. But your way, capital Y-O-U, is God's way. There's no difference. There's no separation. There's no segregation at all. And that's when that happens, and then you are doing what God. That is the happiest. I would say, I've said it of Ken again. He's the happiest person on earth. And why the happiest person on earth? Because he was doing exactly what he was being called to do, and he was fulfilling his mission impeccably, with incredible clarity and devotion and commitment. I mean, can you imagine? There's a lot of work, a lot of concentration, a lot of helping of other people. But my God, isn't that wonderful? That you could be helping other people that much, and that you did have that kind of commitment, and that you could begin to feel God's presence. I think that's part of what you're saying as well, Lena, is that you love this, but you love it in a really positive way. And you're not alone. I'm sure Brad would say the same thing, and Shanti would say the same thing, and many others too, is that you, and David would say the same, you just you fall in love with the Course because you know it's true, and because you know it works, and because you know actually that the more you do it, the more it does you. So the consequence is that you feel better, your relationships all improve. You should see that, and the reason why your relationships should all improve is because you're not putting anything onto the relationship. You're not saying the relationship should look like this, that it has to look one particular way. And there's tremendous freedom in that, because then it can look like the way it looks, and it's perfectly all right. And the bottom of 7, for example, says, the kingdom is perfectly united and perfectly protected, and the ego will not prevail against it, no matter how much, how big the ego gets. And of course, the ego can, as we've seen with history, can get really, really big, and it inevitably crashes and falls, right? top of 8. Very simple, your lack of faith in the power that heals all pain arises from your wish to retain some aspect of reality for fantasy. That's always in there. You want to just let me keep a little bit of this my fantasy as reality. Whatever I'm gonna make it, a little fame, a little money, a little something that I'm gonna put a lot of importance on. Let me hold on to that, but it's only by letting all that go that you find out who you really are.
That's what I was trying to comment on about the elusiveness of the holy instant. It's because of, very simply, our lack of faith in the power that heals all pain.
You're talking without a mic.
Some other aspect.
It's okay. It's too late now. All right. All right. Let's. We'll try. We'll try. Actually, let's talk about forgiveness in the next paragraph on 8. Can you imagine? This is one of these more beautiful sections from this chapter. Can you imagine how beautiful those you forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Nothing you see here, sleeping or waking, comes near to such loveliness. And nothing will you value like unto this, nor hold so dear. Nothing that you remember that made your heart sing with joy has ever brought even a little part of the happiness this sight will bring you, for you will see the Son of God. And the reason why that happens is because when we can actually really let it go and really forgive, the experience we have is freedom. And the experience is liberation. The experience is that I am no longer burdened. I am no longer burdened. It had never had anything to do with anybody else anyhow, because it was only in my mind that I thought that there was a problem here. I saw this brother as not being a brother, or this sister that was not a sister, or I made it into something other than what it really was. But I'm the one who did that. So that means that I also can change it. And once I change it, then there's where the liberation is. And there's no problem. That's the way you know that you've actually forgiven. It's a very simple process. When you experience, I'm liberated, I'm free of this, then the forgiveness is real. It's not just an idea. You've actually let it go. Because it's on a gut level, you experience the freedom. And let's talk about perception a little bit. So the Course draws this really clear distinction between perception and knowledge. The bottom of 8. Perception will be meaningless when it has been perfected, for everything that has been used for learning will have no function. So perception is everything that happens with the body's senses, the eyes, the ears, etc. But a really important point, which I say probably almost every time, projection makes perception. So it goes back to the mind, which is engaged in the perception, right? It's not a matter of what's going on with the eyes. It's a matter of what the mind is making of whatever it is that I'm seeing. And this includes both good and bad. It includes everything that I place value judgments on. Even a good judgment can become a trap. It can be a trap insofar as I value something of the world so highly, right? Because I think it's just something of the world that we have placed that kind of a value, which means we've created a special relationship with whatever it is as well, right? Yes. Are you with the mic?
With the mic.
With the mic. You won't forget.
I'm going to be forgiven a few times.
No, you'll be in trouble.
It goes for the same thing with the Course in Miracles, not to make a special relationship with the Course in Miracles, to hold it so dear that we make it special.
Well, that's what Lena was saying.
Yeah, okay.
She was just worried about
asking
that.
a different question. What's that? Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. Nothing is being hurt in that process. As a matter of fact, there's some real healing that's happening in that process because you're so deeply engaged in the work that the work is working. Okay. So the thing about that we need to projection makes perception, and the next step is that perception is a choice. We're always a choice. We're always deciding how we're going to see this thing and whether I'm going to go insane with what I'm seeing or whether I can let go of what I'm seeing and let it be okay. Let's read in the middle of 9, for example. For eyes and ears are senses without sense, and what they see and hear they but report. It is not they that hear and see, but you who put together every jagged piece, each senseless scrap and shred of evidence, and make a witness to the world you want. So you got to see that you're doing that. So now the distinction is between perception and knowledge. Knowledge is equated with heaven. Knowledge comes from a true mind, or the right mind, or the mind of God. It's impersonal, internal, beyond subject and object. Now it's very important that this beyond subject and object, because if I have subject and object, I still have duality. I still have self and other. And when the transcendence becomes complete, as it does in, say, a mystical experience, then there's this sense of blending and merging and oneness that occurs, in which case there is no real subject object, right? There's a point I think I read last time from the Course where it says that consider an animal and its relationship with its child. Let's talk about your child again. That they don't really the animal does not see the baby as separate from it, right? It's a part of it. And being a part of it is where the wholeness comes into it, right? And the same thing would be true in really true love, in really true loving situation. I am my beloved, and the beloved is mine. I mean, the two are blended so completely that there's no subject-object that's really being seen there. Again, this is very often a kind of a mystical experience, but it's what love is when it's right, when it's not a possessive kind of thing, right? And let's look at the bottom of 9. The perception of the real world will be so short. Now, the Course talks about this real world thing is like there's this moment that happens in our spiritual development where we go from the fantasy, distraction, reality to the real world, and then from the real world to heaven. Okay? But this transition from this fantasy world or dream world to the real world to heaven, this all happens very, very quickly in terms of the Course. But let me start reading this again. The perception of the real world will be so short that you will barely have time to thank God for it. For God will take the last step swiftly when you have reached the real world and have been made ready for Him. So the mind is completely ready. The real world is attained simply by the complete forgiveness of the old. The world you see without forgiveness. The old world is the world that we see without forgiveness. Once the total forgiveness is on it, then it's all released. And let's go to 10. So, all this beauty will rise to bless your sight as you look upon the world with forgiving eyes. For forgiveness literally transforms vision. When I say we're literally transformed, we are now seeing in a holy, spell holy however you want to, H or W, in a wholly new way. And lets you see the real world reaching quietly and gently across chaos, removing all illusions that have twisted your perception and fixed it on the past. Unforgiveness, by the way, has to always only be about something in the past. It can never be about something that's in the present, because I'm holding it in the past. My hurt is in the past. The thing I can't let go of is in the past. And so far as I'm holding it back there and I'm keeping it back there, I haven't released it, and it continues to have its effect upon my psyche, making me what I am. And everyone can be free of this just by letting it go. But you got to see that you can let it go. And let's go on with this. Let me start back with forgive. For forgiveness literally transforms vision and lets you see the real world reaching quietly and gently across chaos, removing all illusions that twisted your perception and fixed it on the past. The smallest leaf becomes a thing of wonder, and a blade of grass a sign of God's perfection. Now that's always possible. And you can see it anytime. This is also from Huxley's Point Counterpoint. It says, everything's incredible if you can skin off the crust of obviousness our habits put on it. Every object and event contains within itself an infinity of depth within depths, right? Nothing in the least what it seems, or rather, it's like several million other things at the same time. This is from Counterpoint, and then I mentioned some in the next paragraph an experience that I've had that I'm sure many of us have, well, some of us had it too. I just remember once, before we get to the blade of grass, and I'll come back. This actually, in the first time I experienced LSD, which I'm sure that I'm not alone in this, I had gone outside. I was in a cabin in the mountains in California before it was illegal, actually. The next month it was declared illegal. 1966. And I had gone out and I'd come back and there was a moth on the side of a light on next to the door. And just, you know how this is, you get looking into this moth and into the wings of the moth, and there were worlds within worlds within worlds in that moth's wing, right? Well, that's always there. So the question is, why don't we see it there? Because we put this other stuff on top of us. We put this obviousness on it. We don't really look, and we really don't see. That's why those kind of experiences really kind of stop you. But you can see it. You don't have to have some sort of a stimulus in order to be able to do that. Brad here, as a photographer, can see the most incredible things in a flower, or he's got this eye. He also grew up on a farm in Texas for seeing. But that's in everything. If we can just, it doesn't. Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
The Mott Barak set, the guy who did the fractal.
Oh,
Infinity.
Yeah.
Same thing what we see. The more you go into it,
right,
the more it reduplicates. And that's just where our math's at. Our math and our physics are now proving the Course in Miracles.
Right.
They're trying to deal with infinity. Well, if you're dealing with infinity, there's no sense in measuring it.
Right.
It makes us abstract. So now they're dealing with a complete vacuum. There was perfect symmetry before the Big Bang. Nothing was apart. Nothing before the Big Bang. Nothing was apart from anything. So they actually have terms for it. Perfect symmetry. That's what they say. What happened? They don't really know what happened. The Big Bang. But this is going to be a problem. This is somewhat confronting. Somewhat good feeling when I see math and science is now predicting what we're talking about. Space
right.
and time is relative. This is all relative. And then they're saying time is an illusion. Scientists are now saying time is an illusion.
Right.
They're just, if we're going to, when you go to 0 to infinity, there's no sense counting the ticks. Tick, tick, tick.
That's right.
Tick.
The other thing that it's saying that we talked about last time that I will emphasize just a little bit is that mind is something which is completely independent of matter. And that's what the Course in Miracles is saying too. And once we realize that mind is completely independent of matter, that it doesn't have anything to do with matter. That's very, very, very exciting. Okay, let's go over here to Harold.
So when we see the real world, do we no longer perceive bodies?
Well, you would see a body, but it wouldn't have the same kind of meaning to you. It wouldn't be a body. I don't know how else to explain that. It's not a body that you're putting anything onto, and like say a sexual body or an impressive body, or it's just a plain body. And let's go back behind you.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
Naima.
Naima.
Yes. I'm.
Yeah, I think it's on. Speak directly into it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You got to speak directly into it.
All right. So I am sort of new to the Course in Miracles, but I have been, I came here, I read a little bit of the book. I'm going to buy it. I've been listening on YouTube. I have a fear, I realized being here, that because you keep mentioning special relationships, and, if so this is my partner here.
Uh-huh.
If we don't have a special relationship, if we don't see each other as special, then what is to keep us tied to one another and not, embrace, let's say, polygamy, for example, because it's all about perception. So who's to say that it's only supposed to be one-on-one? Some people, they want to do like that. So I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but it's just a lot of different things that come into my mind when that comes up. I understand the importance of, not idolizing or putting each other as idols, because it's just God, and the importance of having a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, just, I guess, you were saying something about the holy instant, and I hear that as in a Pentecostal way. It's more of like when you sing, you worship to God. That's a way that you have that instant and you have that revelation and you have that communion.
Right.
So I guess, what do you say? Well, because you mentioned your wife earlier. And
it has to do with the use of the word special.
Okay.
And the Course in Miracles is using the word special in a special way. What I mean by that, it's using it. It's not like going out and buying a card at a store and sending it to a friend, and the card says "You are so special." That's not what the Course. It's not like that. It's by special relationship. I mean, just as a relationship in which you are hooked, in which you are caught, in which you are trapped, in which there is some kind of unforgiveness, and it's a relationship that you're putting something onto. It's a relationship in which you have some sort of expectation or anticipation, as I said, about the way this other person is supposed to behave in relationship to you. Now, the Course is using the word special in its own way. So don't take it as the conventional way of using the word special. There's a lot of language that's in the Course that you kind of have to learn as you go along. It's a little different than ordinary language would be. Some of the words are very different, okay? Lilycat's Mike? Oh, very good, Lilycats. You just manifest that. Yeah. Wow. Is that magic? You did that?
There's a place in the Course where it says that the goal of every special relationship is to become a holy relationship.
Yes. Right. We want to transform every special relationship into a holy relationship, so that it becomes a truly loving relationship. It's a relationship in which forgiveness has worked, but it also is saying you've got to be willing to make the effort to transform special into holy. A part of having a holy relationship is working on it, working on the relationship. Now that can happen either the two of you are in agreement that you're working on it, or it can just be you that's working on it, because after all, the relationship is in your mind, right? So by being the loving person that you can be with this person, you will see the relationship be transformed. And you don't have to have an agreement that you're going to be working on trying to transform the relationship. By the way, I can get a little nervous sometimes when I see couples that are newly in love and they say they have a holy relationship. And that can be true, but we also have to watch out for it becoming a special relationship. because the ego likes to sneak back in and grab a hold, get you again, and transform. That's why you have 60%, 50% divorces and 60% second divorces, because there's a great deal of danger in becoming overwhelmed in the thing. And then it turns, the ego's back, and you're back into something else. There was another hand over here. I want to pass the mic to Lena again on the end.
I just want to quickly share my personal experience with special relationships. So I grew up without a father. I don't know who my dad is. Is it still on? Okay.
Yep, you're good.
So for the first part, during the first part of my life, I would project onto my romantic partners my personal sense of like where I felt they needed to complete me because I was not lovable, and that was in my subconscious. And when I began to study the Course, and I began to know on a level of the mind that I was already complete, that I was lovable, and that I was perfectly loved by God, that whenever that ego impulse to remind me that everyone had always abandoned me, that I was not lovable, whenever that would come up, I would tell myself, I am already loved as I am. My first and foremost source of love is within me, is within my heart. Now, it's a practice. You know, really had to practice it so that when partners would show up in my life, I would not project onto them my own sense of incompletion, making them special because they needed to behave a certain way to reflect back to me the sense of lack that I had. But it is a practice, and the more you practice it, it's like you fake it until you make it. It's a mind training that undoes the ego so that the love within, underneath the ego, can burst through to remind you who you really are.
Thanks, hon. That's good. Hi, Gianni.
Hi. Yes, I have a also experience with that, and pretty much probably very similar to hers. And I have to say that I reached a point with someone that special relationship turned into a holy relationship, and we both are in it. And in this relationship, there's nothing that I want from him, and he doesn't want anything from me. I'm not looking for anyone or in this relationship to fulfill me, and I can love him unconditionally, whether he's here or not,
Right.
because I see God in him.
Right.
So therefore, the specialness that I had before, where he needed to behave a certain way, otherwise there was no more love. So what kind of love is that when I'm putting already conditions
Exactly.
on the love that I'm giving?
Sure.
So I learned to not put any conditions on that love and just give it lovingly without expecting it back to me.
Exactly.
And then it turned into a holy relationship, and we have an amazing time now because there's no more based on needs,
Right.
on sort of imagining needs, rather.
It's pretty simple, isn't it? I mean,
Yes, it is.
It's actually very simple when you just let it be what it is. You can have a really good relationship, a good marriage, whatever, just by letting it be. It's so incredibly simple without all those expectations. Let's go back to the blade of grass for just a moment. Well, it's in everything. I wanted to mention, Dolores and I saw this movie called Babies. I don't know whether any of you saw it. It was out 2 or 3 years ago. They took 4 babies and they followed them through the first 18 months of their life in separate locations. One in here in the United States in San Francisco, one in Japan, one in Mongolia, and one in Africa. And there was no documentation, there was no commentary about what they were filming. They just followed these 4 babies, and one of the messages that was coming out of this, without anybody saying, look, this is the message that's coming out of this, the 2 babies that were grown up in well-to-do circumstances, the American and the Japanese, both had multiple stimulations, computers, games, iPads, televisions, toys of all sorts, et cetera, that were just sort of constantly there for them. But the African boy, who didn't have any of those electronics or nothing like that, had dogs and cats and other animals and other children and rocks and sticks, and the mother wasn't clear exactly who the mother was, because all the women in the tribe were the mother, and one would be feeding the breast and the other one would be feeding the breast. And then the Mongolian one as well, he was growing up in a yurt, but the goat was walking in and out of the yurt, and the dogs were like protecting him. And the message that came out there, all their lives were rich. And the very fact that the ones in the more wealthy areas had more stimulation didn't mean anything, because the others had plenty of stimulation. Plenty of stimulation just from the natural world. That in fact is maybe they had more stimulation in some ways with the animals and with nature than they did without. It was just a really, because the richness is there, regardless of how do you see it. And those that were given you, all the rest must be forgotten. Forgiveness is a selective remembering, based not on your selection. So when it says it's a selective remembering, it means we're not selecting out those parts that we didn't like. We're not looking for that aspect. We're really moving to the truth that lies within inside everybody, right? And everybody really is lovely inside, if we give a chance to be able to see the loveliness. That's again why you've heard me say in the past that I was fortunate when I was teaching in prison back in the 80s that I did not know my students' crimes, because it gave me an opportunity to get to know them as people without any of those concomitants of other. I had no information actually about the past. And when you're standing looking at someone and you're just talking to them, you're kind of getting to feel for who they are and to know them without having any thoughts about what they've done in the past. It was a whole wonderful way of relating, right? And to the top of 12. Be willing to forgive the Son of God for what he did not do. Now, when we're talking about the Son of God here, it doesn't mean Jesus. It means everyone who is a son of God, okay? Be willing to forgive the Son of God for what he did not do. The shadow figures are the witnesses you bring with you to demonstrate he did what he did not. Now, you may well say, well, how did that doesn't make any sense. But it does. And in eternity, in reality, none of this insanity is possible. This is a dream world. We are going to awaken. And we're awakening to the reality of the real world, and we're awakened to the reality of heaven. And there's no past there. You're not dragging any past with you. You couldn't possibly drag any past with you. That's why a holy experience, a holy instant, is really also just an experience in which there is no past. There couldn't be. Can we get a mic for, oh, here it is. There you go. Christian.
Thank you. Is dying the end of illusion?
No.
No.
Actually, Hugh, a fellow named Hugh who was here last week, kind of said the same thing. Because it still depends on where your mind is at. Okay? But as I said last time, I think one of the advantages of dying is that you get to become, it's like a little bit like waking up in the morning. By that I mean, one of the first things you're going to become aware of is you're not a body. So the mind is still there. So the question is now what you do. And more than one of you brought up the fear of God thing. The thing to do at that point is to just really let go and not get into that fear that you don't have, that there's no separation, that there's no body. And learn to be who you really are. Awaken you have an opportunity at that point. But if you get frightened and if you feel like you need a body, this is difficult to describe, but when I had that first out-of-body experience I had back in 1976, which was really traumatic, I wanted my body back big time. And I was terrified. Because in that instant, I thought I was being annihilated. I mean, it was all literally annihilated, and that was terrifying to be annihilated, right? I didn't realize until later, as I said, when I had the experience again, that the thing to do was simply to jump into it, to go. It was okay to be annihilated, because you're not annihilated. It's only the surface. It's only the outside. It's only the shell that's annihilated. It's like once that breaks open, then there's much more inside. But this is going to depend on every mind on its own. Yes.
But so, in other words, if when one dies, if you happen to be in a angry or a hateful kind of place, is that where you're going to?
Well, it doesn't mean you can't change that.
What,
And
in the moment?
In any moment.
In any moment.
Any moment. Any time. Right?
But that would require an act of consciousness as you're dying, right?
Well, the mind doesn't end. Right? It's not like there's a stop and a start.
I understand that, but I mean
Right.
the ego mind ends, right?
If you're still holding on to some sort of some sense that there has to be an identity that has a form, then maybe you'll need that form back. Maybe you'll need a form, but you don't have to. I think that's the really good. In fact, I don't think you would want to. I mean, one of the things that you learn in the Course is, we've said this here before, and I'll say it again right now. Does anybody want to come back? See, no. So people aren't raising their hands. Just a second, James. You're not raising your hands because you know this is tough. It isn't easy, and it is, as a matter of fact, a little bit like being in prison. Yeah, well, that's what who is it? Said hell is other people. Sartre. Yeah. Well, that's true in the sense of all the special relationships. It's like having to deal with all the special relationships. But if you learn how to transform trust relationships into holy relationships, then it's not hell. Then it's heaven, and then it's quite beautiful. Every mind is in its own. Milton once said, "The mind is in its own place. It can make a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. It really depends on where the mind is at." But one of the things that it's interesting, I'm working on this book on hell and heaven, or the whole concept of heaven in the Course right now. And I was been studying what other religious conceptions are with regard to heaven as a part of this thing. And you get something like some of the Catholic concepts, for example, with purgatory and all the different dimensions and all the different levels. And so many of them are talking about as though there's a body there that's going to be burning in hell. Or actually, in some of them, freezing in hell. And what's really strange about that is that it's talking about a body. The Course in Miracles is saying, this is where this is a real good education for us, it's not about bodies, because you're not a body. You never were a body. You seem to be a body right now. This is incredibly temporal. This is actually a dream from which you're going to awaken. And then when you do awaken, you'll realize that was just a dream, and it didn't even mean anything except insofar as we might learn something from a dream, right? James, and then we're going to take a break after
I
James.
think there's a lot of confusion around this issue, and you brought it up with the movie that just came out, the kid who went to heaven, right? And he had a whole perception of heaven,
yeah, right.
And it's not really aligned with the Course, where you see, Jesus' palms are bloody, and it's the persecution of Christ and all that he saw and everything like that. And then somebody says, "Do you see a body?" And people have gone to heaven; they see all their loved ones and everything like that. You see what you have to see where you're at. You see what's most comforting to you and most, loving to you, to lead you to the next level, till you don't need that anymore. And that's why I think we get all these fragmented different perceptions of it. And I think that's the Holy Spirit who is just leading you on where you start to see complete love and start experiencing complete love. And that image can take on many forms, because you just got out of your body, and it's just going to lead you where to an abstraction that probably none of us can talk about. But I think that's, you see what you have to see.
That's why I quoted Milton just a second ago. He says the mind is in its own place. It's going to make a hell out of heaven or a heaven out of hell. It just depends on where the mind is going to go. We're working here on training our minds in such a way that we can learn what we really need to do, right? So that we can become free. There's a medieval mystic who once said, those who die before they die don't die when they die. So really what we're learning to do here is to die now, so that you don't have to do it later, which is really the truth. I mean, this is really so that so it will not be something that's fearful, and so you'll be able to move more easily into the experience, and it will be more blissful. Like Cora, who was here last time, described her near-death experience that she had, and she actually was crying because it was so beautiful. It was being home again, the way she talked about it, and she didn't want to leave, and she's ready to go home any time. Well, that's the way it should be. And I think that's the way it can be for any of us, hopefully, right? All right, let's take our second break. I don't know if any of you have watched any of this on YouTube, but it's everything that gets recorded. So let's go to page 13. And I'm just going to kind of concentrate on, in the little time we have left, probably the things that are in bold more than anything else. Top of 13. The tiny tick of time in which the first mistake was made, and all of them within that one mistake, held also the correction for that one, and all of them that came within the first. And in that tiny instant time was gone, for that was all it ever was. What God gave answer to is answered and is gone. So the very second that the split occurred, it really never occurred. Because in that same instant is the answer to the split, all right? Which means that it couldn't, that's again why this whole, I know it seems like a pretty phenomenal idea to say that all of history, for example, never happened. But in that sense, it's really the case. And it never happened because, again, you can't leave home, you can't leave God, you can't leave the truth, you can only do it in a dream. You can only do it in a fantasy, and fantasies are not reality. And that's really the good news. I mean, the really good news is that you never left home, actually. You cannot leave home. You can only have dreams about leaving home, right? The ego seeks to resolve its problems not at their source, but where they were not made. What that means is the ego seeks to resolve its problems in the world. We're always looking to fix the problems within the world. And the problem with that is that you can never fix the problems in the world. Because even if you do succeed in fixing a problem in the world, another problem will arise to take the place of that problem. So you fix an economic problem and a health issue arises, or something else. So that there's always something that the mind is obsessing about and worrying about and fixated on, which is also the reason that we're crazy. All right? And that's the reason we're all crazy almost all the time, right? Because we're not really entertaining the mind of God. Remember the story I told about the guy in the coffee shop, the homeless guy who was talking to himself, right? So, but we're all kind of like the homeless guy in the coffee shop who was talking to himself. In that we've all got some sort of dialogue that's going on in there in which we are talking to ourselves. And so you really, what the Course is asking in part is that you pay attention to what that dialogue is and see how happy you are with that dialogue. And if that dialogue has a lot to do with guilt and fear and anxiety, and then you need to be listening to a different teacher. Pardon?
We're all having the conversation. He's on speakerphone.
He's on speakerphone. I like it. Yeah, it's kind of like that, isn't it? Yeah, right. So, but there's the course of the Holy Spirit is also always there, always speaking, but it's a very soft voice. And it's a very gentle voice, and it'll never say anything that will upset you. It's never going to say anything that will disturb you. As a matter of fact, it will only bring you something that's going to help you feel more peaceful. And that's one of the ways that you can know that you're listening to the right voice, because it will be something that's very peaceful and gentle. On to 14 down the middle. You have made very real relationships even in this world. You do not recognize them because you have raised their substitutes to such predominance that when truth calls to you, it does constantly, you answer with a substitute. So we're always putting a substitute in its place. Every special relationship you have made has as its fundamental purpose the aim of occupying your mind so completely that you will not hear the call of truth. And it's just, I'm sure that that's been an experience that we've all had, right? That there's something that just so obsesses your mind that you can't sleep at night, or that it's always there regardless, especially perhaps when maybe if you drive a car, you're driving your car, or you're in a more relaxed position where you're not concentrating maybe on some work, but this problem that you have is going to come in every time it gets an opportunity for when you get into a little bit of silence. Rather than having real silence, this insane thing will jump into the mind, which should show us all that we are insane, which is what we're trying to fix or we're trying to correct. That's why the Course places a lot of importance upon reason, reasonableness, and again, responsibility, as we said a while ago. And on the bottom of 15 on the right, the insane protect their thought systems, but they do so insanely. The thought system the special relationship protects is but a system of delusion. So that's why it's defended insanely. So, for example, we justify our insane behavior. Justification is a typical kind of ego defense, right? We say that there's good reason for it. And I really am a victim of the world I see. And I have proof. I just have mountains of, very often, I know some of you are therapists in the room, and some of the times when whatever I do is in the way of therapy is mostly done on the telephone. It's mostly kind of crisis intervention stuff. But most of it, as one case was this week, somebody I'd never talked to before, it was just, I had to listen to about 20 minutes of just pure projection, being thrown out onto the world about what this SOB husband had done to this particular woman. And I don't doubt that everything that she said was true. I mean, I don't doubt that he had done all these things that she said that he had done, but she was so fixated that I couldn't even break in hardly to stop her. There was no real opportunity to say, but there is another way of seeing this, and you could be free of this, and you could step aside from this. It's just, the obsession was so dominant, it would take a lot of work to have been able to do something in a case like that. I'm sure that many of you face that same sort of situation.
So what do you do?
Well, in that particular case, there wasn't anything I could do much except to try to calm her down, in some ways. And she called back later and said that she was very grateful for what I had done, and I hadn't done anything. So, yeah, I listened. Yeah, right. It was just there, just present, So it's amazing when you don't do anything, and then they call you back later and tell you how grateful they are, or appreciate the fact that you didn't do anything. Okay, or at least that's how I felt about it, right? Terrence? All right, give the mic. I don't know who's going. We need to. Okay, same. All right.
Interesting that you said so much can be done when you don't do anything. It's kind of something that strikes me when we talk about special relationships, the point counterpoint, form versus content, or spirituality versus materiality. And a lot of times what we try to do is figure out, what do I do? That's the question that gets asked a lot of times. here's a situation, a very specific thing that's bugging me or that I love or that I hate, whatever it is. And it's like, what do I do about that? And a lot of times the answer, at least that I get when I feel most at peace, is really to do nothing.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's not about the thing that you do. We always try to translate having a calm mind into something that we do or create or make, or
Right.
you see, yeah, something has to happen on the earth, but that's not really what the Course is saying.
Right.
And that's where I think we get a lot of times tripped up. I know at least I do. So.
You're right. Later on, when we get a little further into the text, we'll get to the I need do nothing section, or I'll read the I need do nothing section, which is really is so helpful and so soothing, because there really isn't anything that you do need to do, except to accept the reality of whatever the situation is, and see if that doesn't change everything, right? Let's go to page 16. In the dark print. Because your attack thoughts will be projected, you will fear attack. And if you fear attack, you must believe that you are not invulnerable. Attack thoughts therefore make you vulnerable in your own mind, which is where the attack thoughts are. Attack thoughts and invulnerability cannot be accepted together. They contradict each other. So just remember, this is your thoughts that you're putting out to the universe. So what am I putting out? And if you find yourself, I said earlier, do not attack, obviously not verbally, not physically, but also not in the mind itself. So if I see that my mind is attacking someone or some situation, you really can control that. And you really can redirect. You need do nothing. You really can really direct it in another way. And the bottom of 16, the whole of heaven lies in this instant, borrowed from eternity and set in time for you. That's like the blade of grass again. That's all, you see it all there. The picture of heaven and of eternity grows more convincing as you look at it. Now this is good news. This is a nice positive. That's why the Course, in a very positive sense, is addictive, right? Because the picture of heaven and eternity grows more convincing as you look at it. Just as you let the love be there. Again, realize you're in control. Who else could possibly be in control of your mind? You're a choice all the time. So every time the mind, catch yourself, stop it, catch yourself, stop it. You catch your mind going down some insane negative path, you stop it, and you do have the power to redirect it. Top of 17. The holy relationship is the expression of the holy instant in living in the world. Like everything about salvation, the holy instant is a practical device witnessed to by its results. The holy instant never fails. The experience of it is always felt, yet without expression it is not remembered. The holy relationship is a constant reminder of the experience which relationship became what it is. And the unholy relationship is a constant hymn of hate in praise of its maker. So is the holy relationship a happy song of praise to the redeemed of relationship. Let's just wonder, it's just nice to read that. And then the next piece too. So, a special relationship is a substitute for God's will. A holy relationship serves God's purpose. There's a way to distinguish between the two. That's not from the Course, that's something that I wrote. And then the next paragraph. Whenever any form of special relation tempts you to seek for love in ritual, remember love is content and not form of any kind. The special relationship is a ritual of form, aimed at raising the form at the expense of content. There is no meaning in the form, and there never will be. The special relationship must be recognized for what it is, a senseless ritual in which form has triumphed over content and love has lost its meaning. I think you could read that first sentence in there as kind of a dig at marriage, if you think about it, right? I mean, let's read it again. When any form of special relationship tempts you to seek for love in ritual, Remember, love is content and not form of any kind. It's not the act of the ritual of the marriage that makes the marriage. And in fact, that's when I do a marriage ceremony, there's a line in the one that I do which says, no ceremony can create your marriage. Only the two of you can do that. Through love and patience and understanding and caring, and in other words, of all the kinds of things that would really create a holy relationship.
Hey, John.
Yes.
The couple back in the back,
Yes.
they were talking about special. Something just came to mind that I've never quite looked at it this way. That came from this passage. You could say a special relationship is when the form becomes more important to you than the content. I like that. It says it here in other words, but I've never looked at it that way.
I've seen that happen in a lot of churches, where the ritual becomes more important than the content. I remember once when I was working as a minister, I tried to change up the service a little bit, the way it was done. And this one woman who was sort of the director of the worship committee came to me and said, look, it's an order of worship. We follow an order of worship, And I said, well, I thought it was kind of good to change. No. This is the order. We've done this. This is the way we've always done it. And I said, okay, well, we'll do it that way. Because it really didn't matter, But that's true, and that's true in so many things. It's what we make into it. We talked a little bit last time about like weddings, what happens at weddings, and about how the ritual and the form of the thing it gets so elaborate and so expensive and so highly produced, and sometimes they're not very happy affairs at all, because of people get very uptight if things aren't working out exactly the way that they think that the things are supposed to work, and there's more virile comes up than love does sometimes. Okay.
Sometimes they do. Microphone.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes they do. I mean, it's a
Okay, wait. Give.
Stop.
Sorry.
You'll need to be forgiven if you don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want?
It's all a matter of perception. If you buy into the ritual and all that hocus pocus and all that kind of stuff, with the Holy Spirit says it's none of your business who you end up with. Remember, and that was which guided me. Who I ended up with was next to me for years, and I never saw it. Okay, and it's for me where I was at was a total fait accompli ego move for me to go in, and then there was a total release. So the ego didn't have anything to do with it. I'm blessed for that because I just went with it, and I was ready to go with it, and I didn't go through the washing machine. But there's many people that are people. There's like two things. The big thing about a marriage is the acceptance. It can work as a catalyst, acceptance, and as any man who's been married for many years will tell you, there's two words you have to know. It's yes, dear.
Well, that just means that you're being cooperative and loving, right?
Well, you're taking it for what it is.
Exactly. You're not trying to change it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Right. Okay, bottom of 17. If heaven were outside you, you could not share in its gladness. Yet because it is within, the gladness too is yours. Isn't that great? It's a very beautiful section, right? And then let's do setting the goal and on 18, the top. Yeah. Without a clear-cut positive goal set at the outset, the situation just seems to happen and makes no sense until it has already happened. Then you look back at it and you try to piece together what it must have meant, and you will be wrong. Not only is your judgment in the past, but you have no idea what should happen. No goal was set with which to bring the means in line. Now the only judgment left is whether or not the ego likes it. Is it acceptable, or does it call for vengeance? The absence of a criteria for outcome set in advance makes understanding doubtful and evaluation impossible. So what is the goal? Where are we going with this? We're going to wake up. We're going all the way home. That's the real goal. The real goal is to find out who you really are, not within the context of a dream, but within the context of reality. And we need to keep that goal in front of us at all the times. And as long as I understand that that is my goal and that that's where I'm going, and I keep it in front of me, it'll work. That's why I said the more you focus on heaven, the more it will become clear to you. It's just like any other studying anything else. If you study, if you throw yourself into any other kind of study, you'll start getting a lot of richness out of it. Right? You got to make a commitment to it. So it is that, as Lena said, we make a commitment to the Course, and you start getting all this richness that's in the Course, and you love it even more. Okay. Let me see if there's another part. Let's just read the top of 19. You think you hold against your brother what he has done to you, but what you really blame him for is what you did to him. It is not his past, but yours you hold against him, and your lack of faith in him because of what you were. Yet you are as innocent of what you were as he is. What never was is causeless and is not there to interfere with truth. There is no cause for faithlessness, but there is cause for faith. That cause has entered any situation that shares its purpose. The Course on several occasions asks us, where are you placing your faith? And when it says that, it's really meaning, are you placing your faith in your ego? In which case, you're not going to get very good results. Or are you placing your faith in the guidance of the Holy Spirit? Okay. Then I thought I would read this benediction. I would just make this as a benediction, sort of to end with on page 20. This is also from this chapter. Let us ascend in peace together to the Father by giving him ascendance in our minds. We will gain everything by giving him the power and the glory, and keeping no illusion of where they are. They are in us through his ascendance. What he has given is his. It shines in every part of him as in the whole. The whole reality of relationship with him lies in your relationship to one another. The holy instant shines alike on all relationships, for in it they are one. For here is only healing, already complete and perfect. For here is God, and where he is, only the perfect and complete can be. That's the goal, that's where we're going, and that's home. Okay. So would some of you like to share your, we always get take 10 minutes or so to see your cards that you got in your, a little, if it's meaningful for you. All right, so microphone is, I'll handle the mic on this side of the room. And, okay, you handle it over there, okay?
The way to God is through forgiveness here. There is no other way.
There's no other way. How simple can that be?
When a mind has only light, it knows only light. Its own radiance shines all around it and extends out into the darkness of other minds, transforming them into majesty.
Yeah, one of the things I love it when you just a little line in the Course that's so powerful. One of them is that light. Remember the line that says the kingdom of heaven is within you? Well, there's a line where it says, and I'm not getting this exactly right, but it's pretty close. Light is within you. So we tend to think of light as something that's coming to us from the outside, but that's not what the Course says. It says the light is in you. So if you want to see, close your eyes. Right. And it means that in a very literal sense. Anybody else on? Oh, okay.
We were speaking of this earlier, and this is really helpful for what I'm going through. The opposite of joy is depression. When your learning promotes depression instead of joy, you cannot be listening to God's joyous teacher and learning his lessons.
Right.
Very simple. And to be aware of that, like you keep reiterating in every class, which is so helpful, that to raise our awareness, to be aware that I'm in this cycle, that I'm feeling depressed, that I'm listening to the wrong teacher and choosing again. That's the process for me.
Good. Anybody else on this side while I'm here? Terrence?
There is no problem in any situation that faith will not solve. Is it not possible that all your problems have been solved, but you have been removed yourself from the solution?
So all the problems have been solved, as a matter of fact. Just a matter of seeing this. Anybody else on this side? Okay.
Nothing outside yourself can save you. Nothing outside yourself can give you peace. Because the world lies within you, right?
That's good because there is nothing outside of you, right? Outside of your mind. Did you want to read?
To heal is to make it happy.
Right. Isn't that nice?
Very simple.
So simple.
And awesome.
To make happy. Okay. How about on this side? Okay. Christian's got the mic.
All right, this is really good for me. It is not up to you to change your brother, but merely to accept him as he is. Any attempt you make to correct a brother means that you believe correction by you is possible, and this can only be the arrogance of the ego.
Not only does it mean that not only does it mean that that you think that you can correct, but that you think you know what the correction is. And how the correction needs to occur. Right? Which is insanity. Michael or Brooke?
Ultimately, everyone must remember the will of God, because ultimately everyone must recognize himself. This recognition is the recognition that his will and God's are one.
I love that word ultimately, because the word ultimately brings us home, and it's twice in that piece there. Somebody else? Harold?
The truth about you is so lofty that nothing unworthy of God is worthy of you.
That's so inspirational there. Anybody else? Pass it around back there. Up front. George?
What would you not accept if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is good?
See, not only that, but you know what? The Course also says, right in keeping with that, that you are always exactly where you're supposed to be. You're in the right place at the right time, even though it may not look like it at all. Right? You're learning what you need to learn at that juncture, and you may say, I don't want to be here, laying on this operating table or whatever this is, but again, that's where at that moment, and the more you can accept the reality of that, it's okay that I am here on this operating table or whatever. I just picked an illustration. It's all right. Okay. Anybody else? Share your card. All right, then let's do a meditation. So, actually, Brad, can you dim the lights without turning them out? Just dim them a little bit, okay? All right, that's good, thanks. If you started doing the Course in Miracles with Lesson 1 on January 1st of this year, today you would be at Lesson 38. And I'm going to share Lesson 38 with you. This is a lesson that involves a little bit of practice on your part, with your eyes closed. Couple of deep breaths and relax. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. Your holiness reverses all the laws of the world. It is beyond every restriction of time, space, distance, and limits of any kind. Your holiness is totally unlimited in its power, because it establishes you as a son of God, at one with the mind of His Creator. Say silently to yourself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. Through your holiness, the power of God is made manifest. Through your holiness, the power of God is made available. And there is nothing the power of God cannot do. Your holiness then can remove all pain, can end all sorrow, and can solve all problems. It can do so in connection with yourself and with anyone else. It is equal in its power to help anyone because it is equal in its power to save anyone. Say silently to yourself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. If you are holy, so is everything God created. You are holy because all things He created are holy. And all things He created are holy because you are. Say silently to yourself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. In today's exercise, we will apply the power of your holiness to all problems, difficulties, or suffering in any form that you happen to think of, in yourself or in someone else. We will make no distinctions because there are no distinctions. Say silently to yourself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. Now search your mind for any sense of loss or unhappiness of any kind as you see it. Try to make as little distinction as possible between a situation that is difficult for you and one that is difficult for someone else. Identify the situation specifically and also name the person concerned. Say then to yourself, in the situation involving, think of someone's name, in which I see myself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. And now again, think of someone else. In the situation involving, whoever this is, in which, say this person's name to yourself, he or she sees himself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. There is nothing your holiness cannot do, because the power of God lies in you. The purpose of this exercise is to begin to instill in you a sense that you have dominion over all things because of what you are. And now, one last time, say to yourself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. Amen. If you'll take your booklet and turn to the back page, and we're going to read what's called the Lord's Prayer from the Course together. It's on the very back of your booklet. We pause at each comma and stop briefly at each period. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect. The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander in temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen. Just a comment about one phrase that appears in there. It's the phrase, the sleep of forgetfulness. The sleep of forgetfulness is really the dreaming of the world. It's all the fantasy that we get caught in. So thank you. Comment about March. The comment is that we're meeting on the 15th of March, which happens to be the third Sunday, not the second. So I'm sorry we had to move it up. Sometimes we have to move one step forward or backwards. I'm going to be gone the first week of March, so that's why it's going to have to be the 15th of March. Okay? Try to remember, you'll get an email about this if I get your email. If I don't have your email, please be sure to give it. Yes, Christian? It is the Ides of March. On the Ides of March. Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right.